Opening, it's 0347 local time. Over Russia, something impossible is happening. 4 objects scream toward Moscow at 380 kilometers per hour, invisible to the most advanced air defense networks on Earth. They shouldn't exist, yet there they are, a perfect, synchronized swarm that will rewrite a night of calculations, rules, and assumptions. The S-400's dilemma. Outside Raisin, an S-400 radar operator stares at his screen. The contacts look like a flock of birds, but birds don't move in razor-straight formation toward an oil refinery. At 52 kilometers from the target and 27 kilometers from the battery, the lead beaver climbs to 800 meters. The clock begins to eat decisions. At that range, a missile needs 27 seconds. At emergency power, the drones close a dead zone in 41 seconds. The commander has seconds, minutes in theory, but real seconds in practice, to decide whether to fire multi-million-dollar interceptors or to wait for positive identification. He fires. 2 N-60M interceptors roar out, reaching Mach 6 in 3 seconds. Then the drones dive to 200 meters and vanish below radar horizon. The interceptors, built to follow radar illumination, are blind without continuous target painting. They explode 80 meters above empty air. Their fragmentation warheads scatter steel into nothing relevant, expensive metal against silence. Pantsir S1, when size becomes weakness. The refinery's last line, 2 Pantsir S1 batteries, has limited time, 17 seconds to lock and engage. Their 1RS-21E radars work great for large aircraft, not for 0.1 square meter drones at 8 kilometers. Returns flicker like ghosts. Hydraulics take time. Transverse rotation eats seconds. The lead beaver finds its mark. The warhead detonates, and the western complex becomes an inferno. One refinery loses 40% of Moscow's fuel supply in a matter of minutes. A cascade of fires reaches temperatures beyond containment and burns for days. The corner reflector trick. 470 kilometers downrange, a second wave approaches. Russians have 3 Pantsir batteries in triangle formation, thinking they are ready. At 0403, 4 drones climb to 500 meters, intentionally. Radar screams, KH-101 cruise missiles. What the defenders don't know, each drone deployed corner reflectors, turning tiny drones into radar equivalents of large missiles. One small reflector can mimic a 10 square meter target. Priority protocols trigger, interceptors fire. $3 million missiles chase aluminum foil. While eyes are skyward, the real threat comes low, exploiting the Pantsir's blind sector. Phased arrays can't turn fast enough, hydraulic rotation lags. Cannons fire, but predictive targeting fails against random altitude changes. Hit probability drops. 7 drones penetrate. 3 more strike, exploiting a single mechanical vulnerability. Chaos reigns. Small drones, clever physics, and timing defeat some of the world's most advanced defenses. Jamming, drift, and the triangle of shadows. Not every attack depends on guile and geometry. At 0418, 6 beavers approaching Vonesh go blind. GPS and comms drop to static. A Krosuka electronic warfare vehicle flooded the spectrum with directed power so intense that a whisper from a GPS satellite becomes inaudible beside it. The drones fall back on inertial navigation, gyros that drift, accumulative errors that multiply over long flights. Heat throttles processors. Power saving shuts radios and sensors to save degrees of CPU temperature. Under those constraints, the drones hunt different cues. They can't see tanks directly, but the shadows those tanks cast form geometric relationships that persist. One drone finds a triangle formed by 3 tank shadows and locks in. It transmits a tiny burst, 128 bytes through a fleeting spectral gap, and the others adjust. The warhead finds the structural weak point where steel meets concrete. Ignition follows. A fuel lake flashes, crews run, and the psychological play is complete. A distant target now smolders, and the defenders realize the map of safe distance has just shifted. Fortress breached. Primorsko-Akhtar. Primorsko-Akhtar airfield was supposed to be a fortress. 4 Tor M2 vehicles in diamond formation, overlapping fields of fire, 2 Su-35 fighters orbiting on station. 8 drones should have been a guaranteed shoot-down. The defenders had modeled every angle, but the attackers introduced process noise, sinuous, weaving flight paths that forced continuous filter recalculation in the fire control models. By the time all 4 Tors fired, the UJ22s executed a violent vertical pull, cleaving the missile's ability to follow. Canards stall, thrust vector limits reached, and most interceptors sail harmlessly below. One missile detonates, turning a drone into confetti. But the spectacle served its purpose. Every eye and radar pointed up. Seconds later, amphibious route Beavers crossed the Sea of Azov at 5 meters altitude, hugging the radar horizon. Ground radars cannot see below the curvature. Sea routes provide stealth. Hangars full of Shahed 136 drones, each with fuel and explosive enough to turn storage into an inferno, are struck in seconds. Smoke chokes runways. White-knuckled scramble attempts abort as visibility collapses. A base dedicated to drone operations is neutralized in under a minute. The long shot, Penza and range engineering. At 0444, 2 modified Beavers reach Penza, 630 kilometers inside Russian territory. That's beyond a normal Beaver's reach, but clever engineering extended their range. Auxiliary tanks sacrificed warhead mass for fuel, trading 5 kilos of explosive for 12 liters of fuel and a near 1,000-kilometer reach. An Su-35 on patrol traps one at 43 meters on radar by narrowing beam aperture and concentrating power. R-77 missiles are launched. Once fired, they become autonomous seekers with high G capability. The drones attempt extreme maneuvers and barrel rolls, trying to induce angular rates that defeat the seeker's gimbal. The first missile detonates nearby, shredding control surfaces. The second impacts. One Beaver becomes confetti, the other lurches on like a wounded animal. Its flight computer recalculates, and at the last seconds it finds its mark. A semiconductor fabrication plant's clean room is penetrated. 15 kilos of explosive are small normally, but not when the target houses nanometer equipment and ion implant machines that cost years and tens of millions to install. Filters fail, contamination ruins process lines, and months of military chip production vanish into dust. Strategic consequences. Within hours, Russia begins a massive reallocation of air defense assets. Every system reassigned to protect refineries, bases, and strategic infrastructure strips battlefield coverage elsewhere. That gap enables long-range rocket systems like HIMARS to operate with freer targeting. The economics are stark. Ukraine spent hundreds of thousands on drones and inflicted tens of millions of dollars of material damage, but the strategic and psychological tally is far greater. When a drone can hit Penza, distance is no longer a shield. Deterrence frays. Tactics, tools, and the new calculus. What these strikes reveal is not just the ingenuity of low-cost drones, but the fragility of systems designed for different fights. Corner reflectors convert radar signatures. Controlled jamming turns satellites into silence. Altitude tricks turn prediction into probability. Vertical maneuvers expose the limits of seeker aerodynamics. Swarms turn single engagements into cascading failures. One false positive, one misdirected volley, one mechanical lag, and an entire defensive constellation can be compromised. Where the edge lies, technology remains the edge, but it is two-edged. Electronic warfare that hides a whisper can also blind friendly sensors. Missile interceptors that excel at large, predictable targets can be fooled by tiny, agile signatures paired with low cost and expendability. The attacker's calculus here is simple: small expenditure, disproportionate effect. The defender's calculus is complex. Cover every angle, but physics and budgets will always leave gaps. Final thought. At dawn, after the smoke and the emergency redeployments, the map looks different. It is no longer enough to own the highest mountain of firepower. You must own the seams between mountains. The blind sectors, the frequency gaps, the seconds and degrees where machines and humans still decide. This is not a single night story of destruction and loss. It is a blueprint, a lesson in how asymmetric tools, clever tactics, and tiny physics hacks can rewrite what counts as reach, protection, and power. Goodbye for now, and remember, impossible was just a challenge someone accepted.